What's up, Commanders fam? Ready for another shot of straight hype and breakdowns that only we, the real diehards, know how to cook up. Because if anyone thought this offseason was going to be quiet, that idea is already dead and buried. Adam, Peters, and Dan Quinn are moving pieces around like a world championship chess match. And we're here to dissect every move, every rumor, every little spark of hope for this franchise. Today, we are diving into the possibility that Caleb Downs, the Ohio State phenom, turns into the cornerstone of this defense, a real game changer on the back end. We are also putting Bradley Chubb, the former Dolphin who just hit the market, under the microscope to see if that experience, that recent production, and that talent actually justify an investment from our Commanders, or if that is a value trap we need to stay far away from. And to wrap it up on a high note, we are going to celebrate that insane play by Jeremy McNichols, the one that not only gave us a pure goosebumps moment last season, but also earned the spot in the top 10 of the entire NFL, a straight-up testament to grit and heart. So get ready, tighten up those Commanders caps, because this is about to get good. Let's get into it. Caleb Downs would fix a whole lot of problems for the Commanders' defense. Okay, fam, let's start with the real meat, the thing that has everybody thinking about the future of this franchise. The biggest storyline, no doubt, is Caleb Downs, Ohio State safety, and how that kind of player could flip the script for this defense. Listen, after what we just watched last season, with our secondary leaking more than an old busted strainer, giving up explosives left and right, the idea of bringing in a generational talent like Downs feels like finding water in the middle of the desert. That is the hope this team needs to start rebuilding the defense from scratch, to give it an identity and a backbone again. Jordan Reed, that ESPN draft analyst who actually knows ball, laid it out as clear as day. Caleb Downs is one of the best players in this draft class. And not just that, but Reed says Downs might be the best pure talent in the class, even if you strip out the whole positional value conversation. And that is where the debate really starts, right? We always hear about positional value when it comes to safeties, how they are supposedly not as valuable as an edge rusher or an offensive tackle with a top pick. But when a team has somebody who is a flat-out playmaker, who solves the explosive play problem in the secondary, who changes the whole feel of a game with football, IQ, and a knack for always being around the ball, how much does it really matter that this player is not an edge rusher or an offensive tackle? I am saying it does not. The truth is that the production and impact of a player like Downs blow past whatever label the positional value crowd wants to slap on safety. The talent is so obvious that passing on that player would be a massive mistake, especially with the kind of hold Washington has at that spot. Think about this. Roughly 150 tackles, 7 picks, 8 pass breakups in just 2 seasons at Ohio State. Those are flat-out elite numbers. This is not only a sure tackler, somebody who does not whiff in the open field and has textbook wrap and finish form, but also somebody with rare vision and feel for the football. It is obvious that we are talking about a smart player who sees, plays before they even fully develop, who always ends up in the right spot at the right time. The instincts are on a different level, almost like the game slows down. And with Deroney Jones stepping in as the new defensive coordinator, coming off a Minnesota-style scheme that leans hard into versatility, aggression, and safeties, who can line up all over the place, in the box, in the slot, or deep. A player like Downs fits like a glove. That could be the quarterback of the secondary, the one who gets everybody lined up, who communicates, who erases those huge chunk plays that killed this team over and over again last season. That kind of presence lets the corners and linebackers play more free, more aggressive, knowing there is a monster roaming behind them who has their back and can flip a drive with a single play. The whole unit gets elevated because a player like that brings confidence and discipline with every snap. And do not forget, Washington has the 7th overall pick. If Downs is still on the board, and a lot of analysts think that is very possible, with teams up top chasing quarterbacks, tackles, or edge guys, Adam Peters has to pull the trigger. This team cannot afford to let a talent like that slide. Yes, the roster needs edge rushers. Yes, the roster needs tackles. But the secondary was a black hole. Downs would not just be depth. That would be an instant impact player from day one. That is the type of defender who lets the corners dial up the aggression, knowing there is a beast covering ground behind them. That kind of presence raises the floor and the ceiling of the whole defense. Just picturing it gives you chills. Imagine Downs out there in a Commander's jersey, making game-swinging plays, jumping routes for clutch interceptions, punching out fumbles that flip momentum in a heartbeat. That would be epic. That is the exact type of defensive franchise player Commanders fans have been waiting on for years. The truth is, Peters has to be aggressive in free agency to plug other holes so that in the draft, this team can simply take the best player on the board. And if that best player is Caleb Downs, the future of this defense suddenly looks way brighter. This is a natural leader, a winner, and a pure ball hawk with that built-in feel for living around the football. Exactly what is needed to rebuild this defense and turn Washington back into a real problem in the NFC East. Landing that kind of player would not just repair the secondary. It would reset the whole attitude on defense. An aggressive, playmaking, never-quit mindset. That is the type of pick that defines an era, the kind of player a franchise can build a championship defense around. A lot of people have brought up going edge rusher at that spot with names like David Bailey or Ruben Bain. No disrespect at all. Those are legit talents, and the defensive line is crucial for any serious defense. But the reality is simple. The secondary was the biggest weakness, the one that cost this team the most gains. Explosive plays ripped Washington apart all season. Those big shots down the field that turn into easy touchdowns. A safety like Downs can throttle that in ways very few other players can. This is someone who can play in the box, in the slot, or over the top. And that versatility is priceless in what Deroni Jones wants to do. That is not just a tackler. That is a playmaker. Somebody who can flip a game with a single snap. That is exactly what this team is desperate for. A defender who does not just plug leaks, but creates opportunities, inspires teammates, and becomes the face of the secondary for years. Getting that caliber of player at the 7th pick does not come around often, and Peters cannot let it slip away. Downs would be a flat-out game changer, the kind of talent that actually gets fans dreaming again. But it is not all about the draft, fam. Free agency is right around the corner too. And that is where things start to get real interesting with a name that just hit the street, forcing a real cost-benefit breakdown with a cool head. Commanders analyst weighs the pros and cons of signing Bradley Chubb. All right. Fam, let's talk about a name that just popped up on the radar and has a whole bunch of people scratching their heads. Bradley Chubb. This player just got cut by the Dolphins, which means there is no need to wait around for the official free agency window. Negotiations could happen right now. And obviously, when a former top 5 pick with around 8.5 sacks last season suddenly becomes available, every team has to at least look. That is the kind of move that can flip a team's outlook if it is handled correctly or turn into a headache if it is not evaluated the right way. That is where the voice of reason comes in. From Logan Powelson, the former Commanders tight end who is now breaking it down as an analyst. And Powelson does not sugarcoat it, just cut straight to the point. The take is simple. Chubb is good, but not great. That is the key here. That is why the Dolphins moved on. The production, while solid, did not match the elite money that contract carried. Miami needed cap relief and decided that even with decent numbers, Chubb was not worth the premium price tag. That is a serious warning sign. A precedent that tells a lot about how the rest of the league sees this player. General Manager Adam Peters has been crystal clear from day one. This team needs to get younger and faster. Chubb will turn 30 in June. In the context of Peters' philosophy, that is already a red flag. 30 is not some ancient age in the NFL, but for a pass rusher whose game is tied to burst and explosion, That is the point where a lot of players start to feel the decline. Yes, around 8.5 sacks is nothing to sneeze at, and Washington's pass rush was a glaring weakness last year. No way around that. Dorrance Armstrong, solid as that player is, needs help, needs a running mate who pulls attention from. Offensive lines and opens lanes for everybody else. Having two legit pass rushers is basically mandatory in today's NFL. Powelson points out that Chubb still has some power and a good sense of how to work the edge as a rusher. This is somebody who can put a hand in the dirt or even drop into coverage a bit, which would add some flexibility to what Daronte Jones wants, with all the aggressive looks and pressure packages. Chubb has already played in 3-4 type systems in Denver and Miami, so there is experience in multiple roles, which would help in a hybrid scheme. That versatility definitely goes in the plus column dot, but then comes the big but, and it matters a lot. Athletically, there are some real signs of tightness in the hips. That is a problem. The NFL is all about explosion and change of direction. And once a defender starts showing stiffness, especially in the hips, it becomes a real concern, particularly at a position where bending the edge and changing direction smoothly is the whole job description dot. So the question is this: does Washington really want to invest serious money in a player who, while solid, is not elite and is already flashing physical decline? Powelson nails it. Chubb is probably going to give a team somewhere between 7 and 10 sacks. That would be great, because Washington absolutely needs sack production. But outside of that stat line, fans would probably feel underwhelmed expecting true top-tier impact. This is not a player who takes over a game by pure dominance. This is not Khalil Mack in the prime, not Myles Garrett. This is a very good starter, but not the superstar people picture with a top 5 draft slot. That is basically how the entire career has gone. Good, but never on the level the draft position promised, and always dealing with the injury cloud dot. And that is the dilemma. The pass rush needs help, no doubt. But at what price? And at what age? This is the kind of call that could define Peters' first big swing in free agency and set the tone for how veterans will be handled going forward. Here is the read on it. If Chubb is chasing top-of-the-market money, just like Powelson suggests, Washington should not go near that deal. Peters has to be sharp with the cap because this roster still has a lot of needs, and this team cannot afford to overpay for a player who is not truly elite and comes with a real injury history. But if Chubb is willing to take something reasonable, a prove-it or value deal over 1 or 2 years, loaded with incentives tied to production, then this could be worth a look as depth and an immediate upgrade in the pass rush. Not a long-term solution, but a smart patch while the younger guys develop. It is a risk, sure, but a calculated one if the number is right and the contract has outs. The key is avoiding a heavy overpay for a player who is probably already past the peak and does not fully fit the younger and faster blueprint Peters has laid out. There is also the locker room angle. Chubb is a veteran, a former captain, and could bring leadership and experience to a young defensive front. But this is also a player who just came off a big money deal and might still expect a major role in a payday to match. How does that fit with the plan to bring along younger pass rushers like KJ Henry or Andre Jones Jr. players Washington really needs to step up? That balance matters. The fact that Chubb can be signed right now without waiting until early March is tempting. This front office could jump the line on other teams. But that same factor could also drive a bidding war if multiple teams decide they are interested. Peters has to read the market right and figure out whether Chubb's price tag matches the long-term build. If the value lines up, this could be a solid addition to a defense desperate to rush the passer better. If it does not, Washington needs to walk away and look for younger, higher upside options, whether in the draft or the second wave of free agency. The days of overpaying for a name have to be over. We have talked about the future and possible moves. Now it is time to reset for a second with a story that reminds everyone that even in rough seasons, There are pure magic moments, and at the heart of a player can shine brighter than the record, reminding all of us why this sport. And these players mean so much. Jeremy McNichols from the Commanders lands on an NFL top 10 list. This is the kind of storyline that brings a smile to the face even after a tough season. Because sometimes, in the middle of the chaos and the losses, there are flashes of brilliance that remind everybody why we love this game and why Commanders fans keep showing up. This time, the spotlight is on Jeremy McNichols, the Commanders running back, who just landed on a top 10 NFL list for the second best run of the entire season. Everybody remembers that play. It was completely wild. One of those no way did that just happen moments that make fans jump off the couch and yell at the screen. Pure magic, totally out of nowhere. Last season, after Austin Eckler went down early on with that Achilles injury, Washington turned to a committee backfield that, considering how rough the offense was overall, still held its own. Chris Rodriguez Jr., Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt, and of course, Jeremy McNichols. While Wild Bill and Rodriguez grabbed some of the headlines with yards and flashes of upside, showing what they might become down the line, McNichols turned into the glue, the back who always seemed to show up exactly when needed, the veteran presence who kept the room steady. That is the one making the plays that do not always end up on the highlight reels, but are absolutely crucial for moving the chains and keeping drives alive. And then there was that run, that Week 3 masterpiece against the Raiders. That was pure willpower and pure determination. It came at a critical point in the game. Washington had already lost Eckler and Jaden Daniels in Week 2, and the team was desperate for a win, just needing some kind of spark. The Raiders had just tied the game at 10 in the second quarter, and the team's energy could easily have dipped. With under 4 minutes left in the half, Marcus Mariota hands the ball to McNichols. The veteran back dives into a pile, swallowed, up in traffic, and it looks like there is nowhere to go. It looks like a loss or maybe a tiny gain at best. But those legs just never stop churning. It is a fight, a scrap for every inch. Then suddenly, the whole thing breaks open. McNichols rips through a tackle, finds daylight, and hits another gear with surprising burst. 60 yards later, that ball is in the end zone. That was the only touchdown of the season for McNichols. But what a touchdown. That was the kind of lightning bolt that makes fans jump, scream, and remember exactly why they love this sport. A reminder that even in the darkest stretches, there is always room for one moment of pure magic. What stands out about McNichols is exactly that, ability to create something from nothing. This is not always the player with the biggest yardage totals. This is not the star running back who is expected to single-handedly win a game every week. But this is someone a team can trust, a back who fights for every inch and never quits. On a play, that run summed up the whole vibe: toughness, vision, and pure stubborn will. At a time when the team was banged up, with Eckler and Jaden Daniels both out, McNichols delivered that jolt of hope. A reminder that this roster still has players with real heart, players unwilling to fold. That was the moment that defined the season for McNichols and showed exactly what this bat brings beyond the numbers on the stat sheet. This is not the flashiest name, but that kind of player is critical for chemistry and morale. Now McNichols is set to hit free agency in 2026. The question is simple. Should Washington keep this player around? After watching that, run and knowing this is a reliable veteran who can help in the ground game and in passing situations, the answer should lean toward yes. That is the type of running back every roster needs. A pro who always gives everything. A good teammate who can surprise a defense with a big play at exactly the right time. That is real value, especially in a committee backfield where versatility and experience are huge. McNichols brings that steadying presence for younger backs like Rodriguez and Crosky-Merritt, acting as a quiet mentor. This is somebody who can pass protect, catch the ball out of the backfield, run between the tackles, and as everyone saw, break off a huge game when the entire team is starving for a spark. hopefully Adam Peters and Dan Quinn see it that way, and give McNichols a chance to keep creating magic in Washington. A reasonable veteran contract for a player like that would be a smart move to maintain depth and experience in the backfield without choking off cap space. This is not the kind of back who will drain the budget, but this is exactly the kind who brings value on every snap, brings consistency, and can become an X factor in big moments. On a rebuilding team, every piece that delivers value, leadership, and heart matters. McNichols brings all of that on the field and in the locker room. Jeremy McNichols is a real commander, an example of what it means to fight until the final whistle. That is the full rundown. Commanders fam. A complete, detailed look at everything heating up around this team. From the hype around a possible generational talent like Caleb Downs in the draft, a player who could become the rock of this defense, and completely change the secondary, to the dilemma around a veteran like Bradley Chubb in free agency and the need for a very careful cost-benefit breakdown so Washington does not repeat old mistakes. And finally, to the pure joy of seeing Jeremy McNichols on an NFL top 10 list, proving that heart, toughness, and sheer will always matter in this game, and to this fan base. You can feel the energy. A new era is here, and even though there is a ton of work ahead and a lot of tough choices to make, hope is more alive than it has been in a long time. Adam Peters and Dan Quinn are building something, and the fans are locked in for every step of that journey, breaking down every move, every rumor, every decision with passion and a sharp-eyed dot. So if you made it all the way to the end, show it. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if that has not happened yet, and most importantly, drop a comment and speak up. Is Caleb Downs the right call with that 7th pick, or should Washington go in a different direction? Would you sign Bradley Chubb, and for how much? Or is that risk just too big for where this team is right now? What did you think of the McNichols run, and should that back stay in Washington? Every opinion, every take, every theory is welcome. See you in the next video, fam. Hail to the Commanders.